What are you feeling right now? For that feeling is silently shaping the world you will step into tomorrow. Life does not respond to empty words, nor does it bow to mere effort. It answers only to the feeling you sustain within. Feeling is the secret. Your imagination clothes itself with the emotions you dare to hold. If you imagine a dream but feel doubt, the doubt is what life will reflect. But if you dare to feel the wish fulfilled, even before the outer world confirms it, you have already set creation in motion. The unseen root always precedes the visible fruit. This law is simple. Assume the state of the wish fulfilled, and dwell in the joy of it now. Do not wait for evidence. Evidence comes after. You must feel it real until it becomes natural, until your inner conviction is so strong that no outer circumstance can shake it. When you go to sleep tonight, clothe yourself in the feeling of your desire realized. Let that be your final mood, for the subconscious accepts it as truth and faithfully reproduces it. Persist, and life must yield. The world is only the shadow of your inner state. So I ask you now, will you let old feelings of lack dictate your tomorrow? Or will you boldly assume, feel, and live as though your dream is already yours? Choose the latter, and you will discover the secret that transforms lives. What you dare to feel, you inevitably become. Feeling is the invisible force that shapes every experience of your life, for reality responds not to idle words or mechanical actions, but to the emotional conviction behind them. You may repeat affirmations endlessly or labor tirelessly in the outer world, but if the feeling within contradicts what you seek, the result will align with the inner emotion, not the outer effort. Feeling is the language the subconscious understands, and it translates your mood into form with perfect accuracy. To change your world, you must first change the atmosphere of your inner state. For reality bends only to sustained feeling. Imagination is the seed of creation, but it cannot take root in the soil of the subconscious unless it is nourished by sustained emotion. A passing thought has little power, yet when clothed with feeling, that thought becomes alive, magnetic, and inevitable in its expression. The images you hold in mind are not enough. They must be accompanied by the atmosphere of fulfillment, the inner certainty that what you imagine already belongs to you. Emotion gives imagination weight, depth, and conviction, transforming it from a fleeting picture into a living reality within. When you consistently feel the reality of your imagined state, you impress it upon the subconscious, and the subconscious, being faithful, externalizes it in perfect detail. Every great achievement begins as a vision sustained by unwavering feeling, for the outer world is but the reflection of an inner conviction made firm by emotion. The law is impersonal and unfailing. It does not grant you what you merely wish, but what you deeply feel to be true. To imagine with emotion is to plant a seed and water it daily until it must break through the surface of life and show itself as the tangible experience you, once held only within doubt, is the great thief of manifestation, for it interrupts the creative process at its root. Every time you imagine your desire and then entertain feelings of uncertainty, you send conflicting instructions to the subconscious mind, which faithfully mirrors the state it receives. Doubt is not neutral, it is an active state, a feeling that says, "It is not yet mine." And because feeling shapes reality, the world continues to echo back conditions of waiting, postponing, and lack. This is why so many labor tirelessly in the outer world, yet remain trapped in cycles of delay. Their inner state is one of questioning rather than conviction. Conviction, on the other hand, is the very essence of creation. When you assume your desire is already fulfilled and dwell in that assumption with deep feeling, you create a fixed inner atmosphere that the outer world must reflect. Conviction is not mere hope, nor is it forced effort. It is the calm certainty that what you seek already exists within you. This inner knowing, carried with persistence, generates circumstances, opportunities, and alignments that bring your desire into physical form. The law of assumption works with precision. It does not waver. The only variable is the state you choose to occupy. If you dwell in doubt, you prolong the journey. If you dwell in conviction, you shorten it. Life mirrors your sustained inner mood. And the moment you dare to feel the wish fulfilled with unwavering confidence, the wheels of creation move swiftly and invisibly in your favor. Doubt delays because it scatters energy, while conviction manifests, because it gathers and directs it with singular focus. To live in conviction is to live in the end, and to live in the end is to command manifestation. To assume the wish fulfilled is to step into the reality of your desire before the outer world gives you any sign of its existence. It is to take the invisible and wear it as though it were already visible. This assumption is not a matter of pretending or daydreaming for a fleeting moment. It is the deliberate adoption of an inner state that says, I am already what I desire to be, I already have what I long for. When you clothe yourself in this feeling and persist in it, you impress it upon the subconscious, which accepts it as fact and works tirelessly to externalize it. Feeling it real now is the secret to bypassing delay. Many people postpone their joy, waiting for outer conditions to change before they allow themselves to feel complete, happy, abundant, or loved. But the law of consciousness demands that you feel first and see later. Life mirrors the state you occupy, so to wait for evidence is to wait forever. The creative act requires that you generate within yourself the exact mood you would experience if your wish were already realized, and to sustain that mood until it becomes your natural dwelling place. You may test this in small things. Imagine holding something you desire. Let the feeling of possession fill you, and persist in it without questioning how it will come. Soon, outer circumstances rearrange themselves to match the inner picture. The same principle applies to great desires, for the law does not measure size. It responds only to the feeling carried with conviction. The moment you live inwardly in the end, your world begins to reflect that end, often in ways you could not have devised. Assume the wish fulfilled and live from that state each day. Walk, speak, and think as though the unseen reality were already here, for in truth it is. The outer world is only the delayed shadow of your inner assumption, and shadows must conform to the object that casts them. Choose the state of fulfillment, feel it real now, and persist until the shadow aligns perfectly with the vision you hold within. The great misunderstanding of life is the belief that evidence must come first before conviction can be justified. People look to the world of facts, appearances, and circumstances for proof that their desire is possible, and only when they see a trace of it do they allow themselves to believe. But the law of consciousness does not work this way. Evidence is not the cause, it is the effect. Inner conviction is the cause, and the world must yield to it unfailingly. To wait for proof before assuming is to remain trapped in the very condition you wish to escape. For by acknowledging lack you continue to feel lack, and by feeling lack you perpetuate it. Evidence follows inner conviction, because the subconscious accepts what you feel as true and brings it to pass in outer form. The subconscious is not moved by what you see, nor is it persuaded by your reasoning. It responds only to the conviction you impress upon it with sustained feeling. When you inwardly assume the state of your wish fulfilled and persist in that state regardless of appearances, you set into motion unseen currents that organize events, people, and circumstances in ways your conscious mind could never orchestrate. The world then begins to echo your conviction, often subtly at first, and then with undeniable clarity. Think of the farmer who plants a seed. He does not wait to see roots before believing the plant will grow. His conviction in the process precedes the evidence of growth, and in time the evidence appears because of his unwavering faith. The same law applies to every desire. The seed is your inner assumption, the soil is your subconscious, and the harvest is the evidence you will see in the outer world. The harvest is inevitable, but it arrives only after the seed is planted with conviction. The mistake is to look at present facts and allow them to dictate your mood. When you give more power to appearances than to imagination, you remain bound by appearances. But when you dare to believe in the unseen, when you clothe yourself in the feeling of the wish fulfilled without requiring evidence, you transcend appearances and command them to shift. It is your conviction that generates the evidence, not the other way around. Therefore, let your inner state be fixed, steady, and unwavering. Do not measure progress by what you see today. Measure it by the strength of your inner conviction. The moment you choose to persist in the feeling of fulfillment, life begins to reorganize itself to mirror that choice. Evidence follows as the natural shadow of conviction, and like a shadow, it cannot resist. What you firmly believe within yourself, you will inevitably encounter without. The moments before sleep are the most fertile ground for planting the seeds of your future. For it is in this drowsy state that the conscious mind withdraws and the subconscious stands unguarded, ready to receive impressions as facts. Throughout the day, you may wrestle with doubt, distraction, or opposing thoughts, but in the quiet of night, as you drift into the borderland between waking and sleeping, the mood you carry into slumber becomes the instruction your subconscious takes as truth. This final mood is accepted without question, and once impressed, it must outpicture itself in your waking life with absolute fidelity. The subconscious does not argue, reason, or reject. It cannot distinguish between what is real and what is vividly imagined. It takes what you feel at the moment of surrender to sleep as your reality and begins to shape the conditions of your world accordingly. If you drift into sleep rehearsing fears, worries, and disappointments, you are handing your subconscious the blueprint of lack, and it will faithfully bring more of it to your waking experience. But if you deliberately choose the state of your wish fulfilled, allowing yourself to feel the joy, relief, and satisfaction of having your desire now, you are impressing a new pattern that life must reflect. This is why Neville taught that the most effective way to manifest is through the practice of assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled just before sleep. In this state of natural drowsiness, imagination becomes most potent, and the images you hold are received as real. To fall asleep in the mood of success is to command the subconscious to build circumstances of success. To fall asleep in the mood of love is to invite your world to mirror back relationships of love. The outer world is always the projection of inner states, and the state that enters deepest is the one planted at night. You may test this by choosing even a small desire and making it the last thought of your day. See yourself already possessing it, feel the naturalness of it, and let that be your final sensation as you slip into unconsciousness. The next morning you may notice subtle changes in your mood, new opportunities, or unexpected signs pointing toward fulfillment. With persistence, the invisible becomes visible, and the thing you claimed in imagination must find its way to you. The key is not to approach this practice as labor, but as surrender. You need not force or strain. Simply allow yourself to gently sink into the feeling of the wish fulfilled, much as you would sink into a warm and comforting bed. Let the sensation of completion cradle you as you pass from wakefulness to sleep. The subconscious will accept it, magnify it, and project it outward into the fabric of your life. Every night you are shaping tomorrow, and every final mood is a seed cast into the soil of your own infinite mind. Choose wisely, for what you carry into sleep, you must one day awaken to in the outer world. Persistence is the golden key that transforms imagination into reality, for the act of assuming once is rarely enough to impress the subconscious with lasting conviction. The mind has been conditioned through years of repetition, doubt, and outer reliance, and it often resists the new state you wish to embody. This resistance shows itself as wavering feelings, fleeting moods, or the tendency to return to old patterns of thought. Yet the law is clear: what you consistently feel with conviction must harden into fact. The task, then, is to persist until the feeling of fulfillment becomes so natural that it no longer feels like effort, but like truth. When you first assume the wish fulfilled, the feeling may seem foreign, almost like play acting. You may imagine abundance yet feel the shadow of lack, or picture yourself loved while old feelings of loneliness whisper otherwise. This is the natural response of a mind trained to measure truth by appearances. But appearances are nothing more than the delayed reflections of old states, and they carry no authority except the power you give them. If you persist in the new state, day after day, night after night, ignoring the contradictions of the outer world, the subconscious gradually accepts it as reality. Once accepted, the outer world must conform, for it cannot resist the command of an inner conviction. Persistence is not struggle, nor is it frantic repetition. It is the calm, steady returning to the state of the wish fulfilled whenever the mind wanders. It is choosing to dwell in the end, no matter how loudly the senses protest. You need not battle the old state, for to fight it is to give it life. Instead, gently shift your attention back to the feeling of your desire realized, as one would return again and again to a beautiful melody. With time, the melody becomes second nature, and soon it plays without conscious effort. Consider how habits form. At first, they feel awkward and unnatural, but through repetition, they become effortless. The same principle governs the assumption of your wish. At the beginning, you may feel you are pretending. With persistence, the pretending becomes believing, and believing becomes knowing. When knowing takes root, the world bends to reflect it, for reality always mirrors the conviction held most firmly within. Every great transformation requires this persistence. The artist persists in his vision until the masterpiece emerges. The inventor persists in his idea until it takes form. The dreamer persists in the unseen until it stands visible before all. What distinguishes success from failure in the realm of imagination is not talent, luck, or circumstance, but the ability to hold unwaveringly to the feeling of fulfillment until it feels more real than anything the senses can show. The law is faithful, but it demands loyalty. If you shift from state to state, believing today and doubting tomorrow, you scatter your creative energy and prolong the manifestation. But if you remain steadfast, returning always to the end, the feeling becomes natural, and once natural, it is inevitable. For the subconscious acts only upon that which feels real, and once the state of fulfillment feels like your true dwelling place, the outer world must align. Therefore, persist. Persist beyond the noise of appearances. Persist beyond the whispers of doubt. Persist until what was once a fragile assumption becomes the solid rock of inner knowing. In that moment, fulfillment ceases to be a hope and becomes a certainty. The world is compelled to deliver what you have claimed within, for it is powerless to do otherwise. Persistence molds imagination into fact, and the feeling of fulfillment, once made natural, becomes the law of your life. The outer world is nothing more than a mirror reflecting the inner state of consciousness, and it does so with perfect precision and without error. Every event, every encounter, every condition you face is the shadow cast by the mood, belief, and assumption you sustain within. To believe otherwise is to hand over power to chance, fate, or circumstance, when in truth, there is no outer force shaping your life apart from the inner state you occupy. The law is simple yet profound, as within, so without. The mirror does not lie, nor does it select what to reflect based on preference. It faithfully reproduces whatever image it is given. Most people seek to change the mirror by rearranging the reflection. They work tirelessly to alter conditions, adjust circumstances, or fight against appearances. Yet all the while the root cause remains untouched. The inner state is left as it was, so the reflection soon returns to its former shape. To attempt to change the outer without first changing the inner is to polish the mirror in hopes of altering the face it reflects. The true secret lies not in the mirror, but in the one who stands before it. The inner state is determined by what you accept as true, by the feelings you allow to dominate your consciousness, and by the assumptions you persist in holding. If you dwell in lack, the world must echo lack. If you persist in fear, life will deliver situations that justify fear. But if you assume abundance and feel its reality within, the world has no choice but to arrange itself to mirror abundance back to you. This is not a matter of chance, nor is it selective, it is law. Just as water reflects the image above it without distortion, so too does the outer reflect the state within with unwavering accuracy. You may test this law for yourself in the smallest of ways. Enter a room carrying the mood of joy, and you will notice how people respond with warmth and openness. Enter the same room carrying irritation or despair, and the responses you draw will match that inner state. The room has not changed, nor have the people within it. Only your state has shifted, and the mirror of life reflects it back instantly. This principle operates not only in fleeting interactions, but in the larger canvas of your life. Careers, relationships, health, and opportunities all take their form from the assumption you occupy most consistently. The outer world is never the cause but always the effect. Appearances may tempt you to believe otherwise, urging you to react to conditions as though they possess power over you. Yet appearances are nothing more than crystallized states, hardened shadows of what was once felt and believed. If you wish to alter them, you must return to the root. Change the state within, and the mirror will follow. No effort is required in forcing the reflection to shift, for once the inner state is transformed, the outer must obey. This is why persistence in assumption is so vital. The world may take time to rearrange itself, just as a shadow takes a moment to adjust when the object moves, but the adjustment is inevitable. If you remain faithful to your inner conviction, the outer cannot resist, for it has no life of its own. It is only the servant of the inner reality you entertain. To live with this awareness is to reclaim mastery over life. No longer do you chase after effects, nor do you despair when conditions seem contrary to your desire. Instead, you turn inward, knowing that the true power lies in the state you choose to occupy. You learn to ask not, "Why is this happening to me?" but rather, "What within me is being mirrored here?" And with that recognition, you possess the ability to choose again, to adopt a new state, and to persist in it until the mirror reflects it back. The outer world mirrors the inner state unfailingly. It does not sometimes reflect and sometimes distort. It does not pick and choose. It mirrors with exactness, showing you the state you occupy whether or not you are conscious of it. This truth, though sobering, is also liberating. For if all you see without is the projection of what you hold within, then by altering the within you hold the power to alter all. The mirror waits for you to move, and once you do, it unfailingly follows. Lack is not an external condition but an internal state of consciousness, and as long as it is entertained within, it must reproduce itself without. The world you encounter day after day is nothing more than the echo of the feelings you habitually dwell in. Old feelings of lack, though familiar, are nothing but patterns impressed upon the subconscious through repetition, and they continue to project themselves outward until they are consciously replaced. To wish for a new life while clinging to the inner state of lack is to contradict yourself, for the law of consciousness can only give expression to the feeling you accept as true. The mind is often reluctant to release old states because they feel natural, even if they are painful. A person who has lived long in limitation begins to wear it like a garment, so much so that the very thought of abundance feels uncomfortable or foreign. Yet nothing changes until the old state is deliberately abandoned and a new state is assumed with persistence. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot dwell in lack while expecting abundance, nor live in loneliness while desiring companionship. The state you occupy most deeply and consistently is the one the outer world must mirror back to you. To replace the old feelings of lack, you must first recognize them for what they are: habits of imagination, moods sustained by attention, not objective facts. Lack has no life of its own. It is only kept alive by your willingness to feel it real. The moment you withdraw attention from it and refuse to clothe it with emotion, it begins to dissolve. But leaving a void is not enough. The vacuum must be filled with a new state, one aligned with the life you wish to experience. To simply reject lack without embracing abundance is to invite the old feeling to creep back in. The secret is to replace, not resist. This replacement is done through imagination. You must assume the state of the wish fulfilled and feel it until it becomes familiar. At first it may seem unnatural, as though you are pretending, but through persistence, the new feeling takes root. Just as lack once became natural through repetition, so too can abundance, love, and fulfillment become natural by being entertained again and again. Every time you choose to return to the new state, you weaken the hold of the old. Eventually the new becomes effortless, and the old fades into nothingness. It is important to remember that the subconscious accepts only what feels real. Words alone, affirmations repeated mechanically, or desires expressed with longing will not suffice if the underlying feeling remains lack. To say, "I am wealthy," while feeling poor is to affirm lack more strongly. The transformation comes when the words and the imagination are infused with genuine feeling, the relief, gratitude, and satisfaction of already being what you desire to be. This feeling is what impresses the subconscious, and once impressed, it manifests without fail. Old feelings of lack are persistent because they are supported by memory and reinforced by appearances. You remember times of struggle. You look around and see conditions that seem to confirm lack, and so the cycle continues. But appearances are nothing more than shadows of past states, and memory is simply the mind replaying old assumptions. Neither has authority over your present choice unless you allow it. By turning deliberately to a new state, even in the face of contrary evidence, you declare independence from the tyranny of the past. Each night before sleep is a golden opportunity to replace the old with the new. The subconscious is most open at that borderland of drowsiness, and the feeling carried into slumber becomes the seed planted deep within. To fall asleep in the feeling of lack is to reinforce it. To fall asleep in the feeling of fulfillment is to uproot the old and establish the new. This nightly practice, persisted in, reshapes the inner world and compels the outer to follow. The process requires patience, but patience is not passive. It is the active persistence of dwelling in the desired state until it dominates. Just as a gardener uproots weeds and plants seeds of his choosing, so must you uproot lack and plant abundance. The weeds may attempt to return, but through continual care, the new growth overtakes them. Eventually, what was once effort becomes second nature, and the garden of the mind flourishes with the fruits of your chosen state. Understand that lack is never a condition imposed upon you from without. It is always an inner agreement, whether conscious or unconscious. By replacing it with new states, you reclaim your creative authority. You cease to be a victim of circumstances and become the cause of them. Every time you feel the reality of your desire now, you are rewriting the script of your life. And the script, once rewritten, must play out on the stage of your world. Old feelings of lack must be replaced, not tolerated, not analyzed endlessly, not resisted in fear, but deliberately exchanged for the states that embody your chosen destiny. This is the work of imagination, the great secret of creation. Persist in the new until it becomes natural, and the outer world will unfailingly rise to confirm it. For it has no choice but to mirror the state you have chosen within. What you dare to feel, you must inevitably become. For feeling is the one creative force that governs the shaping of reality. The universe does not respond to idle wishes or half-hearted hopes, but to the depth of emotion with which you clothe your imagination. To dare to feel means to step beyond the limits of what your senses suggest, to move boldly into the unseen and embrace as real the state you desire to experience. The moment you feel it as true, the law of consciousness is set in motion, and the outer world, though it may resist for a time, must bend and eventually reflect the inner conviction. Most people shrink from daring to feel because they fear disappointment. They say to themselves, "I will believe it when I see it," not realizing that by withholding feeling they also withhold creation. Life does not unfold by sight first and then belief. It unfolds by belief first and then sight. What you dare to feel, you plant as a seed within the soil of the subconscious, and the subconscious, being infinitely fertile, never fails to bring forth what is sound. If you continue to feel lack, fear, and unworthiness, these seeds will produce experiences that match them. If you dare instead to feel abundance, joy, and worthiness, even when the senses argue against it, the same law ensures that these too will come forth. Feeling is not wishful thinking, it is the acceptance of a state as present reality. To feel love while unloved by appearances is to declare to yourself and to life that love is already yours. To feel wealth while surrounded by scarcity is to proclaim that wealth is your true state. These assumptions, when carried with conviction, impress the subconscious so deeply that it organizes outer events to mirror them. The path may be hidden from you, the steps may be unknown, but the end result cannot be denied. The law is impartial. It does not judge the worthiness of your desire, nor does it measure its size. It responds only to what you dare to feel as real. To dare is essential because imagination often meets resistance. The old self clings to what is familiar, no matter how limited, and the senses shout their evidence of lack or failure. In such moments, courage is required to ignore appearances and persist in the unseen. Daring to feel means standing in the conviction of fulfillment even when reason mocks you. It is a bold act of faith, an inner rebellion against the tyranny of circumstances. And yet the reward for this daring is certain, for what you dare to feel consistently becomes the world you inhabit. The process is simple but not always easy. First, you must define your desire clearly, not in vague terms, but in the exact state you wish to occupy. Then you must imagine what it would feel like if this were already true. Not how you might feel in the future, but how you would feel now, in this moment, if the wish were already fulfilled. Capture that mood, that satisfaction, that sense of completion, and hold it within yourself. Let it color your thoughts, your posture, your words, your actions. This feeling is the seed, and persistence is the water. Each time you return to the state, each time you dare to feel it in the face of contrary evidence, you strengthen the impression upon the subconscious. The outer world may take time to rearrange itself, but rearrange it must. Just as the seed requires time to grow roots before sprouting, so too does your inner feeling require persistence before its evidence becomes visible. Many give up too soon, abandoning the state because they see no immediate change. But those who dare to feel continually, who refuse to be swayed by delay, discover that reality itself bends to their inner vision. One day, often in the most natural and ordinary way, the outer world presents them with the very thing they once held only in imagination. You must also understand that daring to feel carries responsibility. For just as you dare to feel joy and abundance, you may also unconsciously dare to feel fear and failure, and the law will not discriminate. Every sustained feeling is creative. This is why it is vital to guard the inner state, to choose deliberately what you will allow yourself to feel. The mind may wander, but you are always free to recall it, to shift into the state that aligns with your desire. Repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity creates naturalness. Eventually, what was once an effortful assumption becomes your effortless dwelling place. And when the feeling becomes natural, manifestation is inevitable. Think of the great figures of history who altered the course of their lives not by circumstance, but by inner conviction. They dared to feel themselves as leaders, creators, visionaries long before the world acknowledged them. Their inner state preceded their outer recognition. The world could not help but conform, for the inner always commands the outer. This is not a gift reserved for the few, it is a law accessible to all. The only requirement is that you dare to feel, and in daring, persist until it becomes your truth. Every day presents countless opportunities to practice this law. When faced with a challenge, you can choose to feel defeated or victorious. When presented with lack, you can choose to feel impoverished or abundant. The choice is always yours, and whatever you consistently dare to feel, you must inevitably become. No outer force dictates your destiny. Circumstances may suggest, but they do not command. Your inner state is the command, and the world unfailingly obeys. To live by this law is to step into true freedom. You no longer chase after conditions, nor do you despair at appearances. You understand that the mirror must reflect the face, and so you turn inward to adjust the face you show. Daring to feel becomes your greatest tool, for through it you write the script of your life. The unseen becomes seen. The imagined becomes tangible, the felt becomes lived. What you dare to feel, you must inevitably become, for feeling is creation, and creation is the very essence of life.